Hey, Chrissy here. I am a landscape architect and the owner of Kismet Design. I am a very process-driven designer, and I love sharing what I do and how I do it with anyone who's interested. Reaching your true potential and achieving your own personal goals will not happen by chance. You have to set your intentions, make a plan, and do the work. Thank you for joining me to nerd out on design. Don't forget to subscribe and to share too. Let's create something great together. Today, I am joined by the very passionate and inspiring Kelley Oklesson, the owner of Groundsmith Collective. Her and her team service the greater Washington, D.C. area. And when I finally had a chance to meet Kelley on my trip to Washington, D.C. last year, which, by the way, she is the one that told the APLD chapter that they should have me out there, which I greatly appreciate, I did not get enough time to learn more from her and talk to her about her business. And from there, the bit that we did get to chat about her values, beliefs, and business strategy, I knew I needed to learn more and that all of you would be really intrigued as well. So welcome today to the podcast, Kelley Oklesson. Thank you for being here.
Hi, Chrissy. I'm so delighted to be here. I'm a huge fangirl, as they say.
Well, thank you. Before we jump into the slew of questions that I have, do you want to introduce your business and what you guys do?
Sure. So we are a landscape architecture firm in Hyattsville, Maryland, which is just outside of Washington, D.C., less than a mile from the University of Maryland. And I would say that most of our clientele are residential clients, 70% or so, and about 30% are more community-based landscape architecture projects.
And how big is your team?
How big is our team? Now our team is about 8 people. And what's really interesting is all of our designers are contractors. So we hire them as needed, but most of them have been with us for over a year. We have one designer that works with us who takes on more of the technical challenges. I can hand off a project to her and she can roll with it where we don't need to do as many check-ins and she doesn't need as much guidance. And the other 7 are in a range from 1 year of experience to about 4 years of experience. Most of them are still in school and enrolled in various landscape architecture programs. So that's generally the setup that we've got now.
Nice. We'll dive into more of that.
Yeah,
but
can't wait.
How did you get started in the landscape design industry?
So I fell into it. I was at the University of Maryland on academic probation. I was going to be a D1 softball player, and I was undecided with my career and what my academic pursuits were going to be. I was just focused on athletics. And so my first year at the University of Maryland was a very difficult one. I was floating around. I was quite depressed. I also realized that I was gay. So it was a lot to handle. I ended up dropping off the softball team. I realized that my identity was in crisis and my grades were just sinking. So my second year, I opened the big book of classes that the University of Maryland offered at the time. I think now it's all digital, but they did still print them. When I was in school, this was 2006. And I was looking through the classes and found Intro to Landscape Architecture. I also took Astronomy 100, which ended up being an incredible class as well. I partially, for maybe 3 months, wanted to be an astronomer, or a extreme weather chaser, sort of like the movie Twister.
I
But
love
that
it.
was that was a fantasy. And yeah, I took that intro course, and my attendance in school was still pretty poor. But one of the days that I actually attended, they had a few landscape architects come in and share their work. And I knew at that moment that I could do this. I could muster enough energy to throw myself into that profession. So that's what I did. I went over to the plant science department, the front office, and I was like, this is what I want to do. I have found the program that is right for me. And what do I got to do? So they said, yeah, you got to apply, got to pull together a portfolio, submit it, and we'll get back to you. So that was the beginning. That was the beginning of 4 long, brutal, grueling years of design school.
You didn't even know at that point what you were getting yourself into.
I had no idea what I was getting myself into, but it had enough sparks in my brain and in my soul, my creative side, my soul nourishing side, that I knew that I was curious enough to try. Curious enough to try.
Well, I think freshman year is a hard transition year for anybody, regardless of like all these other outside things that you were dealing with. And then it's a lot of
Absolutely.
pressure for a, 17, 18-year-old to decide like, what do you want to do with the rest of your life? And I found landscape architecture kind of in a similar way. Like I went in thinking I'd be an architect and then didn't even know landscape architecture existed. I would love to figure out a way to increase the amount of exposure and the amount of high school students just knowing that that's a viable pursuit, because I think that it's something that so many people that would be great at it just don't even know it exists until later on, sometimes third and fourth career. Like it's,
Yeah,
you never know.
I agree. I think that it does take outreach. It takes going to career days. It takes making sure that folks in a room know that that is your profession and you're a representative of that profession. That's something that I take seriously, and I, wherever I go, whatever groups I'm in, I will tend to bring that up just so that people know what it is. And of course, they're always like, "Oh, I got to talk to you because I've got a problem at my house, or my mom has a problem." And in the beginning, that frustrated me, but I found that to be an incredible opportunity to connect to human beings and to explain what we do and to market what landscape architecture is to a wider audience.
Yeah. I think that's a really great perspective on it, because I feel the same way. Sometimes I'm like, I just want to watch a baseball game. I don't want to talk about work. But then sometimes it's like, actually, this is a really good opportunity.
Yeah, not, I wouldn't say I'm always that enthusiastic and optimistic and positive about it, but I would say that in my wise mind, I feel like that, yeah, most of the time. Most of the time.
So tell me about how you got Groundsmith Collective started. Like what did the path to starting your own business look like?
So my path started in a way that is not uncommon, actually. So when I got out of school, I ended up starting at a nonprofit. So I went in the direction of public interest design and did that for 7 years and established my design sense and my design values that really drive me to today. And those are to make sure that everybody has access to healthy, beautiful design, no matter who they are, where they're from. So when I did that for 7 years, I also got grant writing experience and leadership experience. But I felt insecure about whether I was a good designer, whether I could actually design, because most of the work I was doing was community cohesion, community building, helping with community consensus. connecting folks to resources, and it wasn't as much design centered. So I left the nonprofit world and joined the design build world. And that was quite a shock and difference in, yeah, going from a mostly female colleagues, female office to a mostly male dominated office. And yeah, mostly women that were college educated to mostly blue collar. So really interesting in that shift. But I learned everything I could have ever imagined about materials and how they're put together and how it's done artfully, and the efforts that are put in, the craftsmanship. It was mind blowing, and I don't think that I'd be where I am now if I didn't have both that nonprofit experience and that design build experience, because the design build experience showed me how things were built, the cost of things, who does what, um, showed me what risks I could take. And the nonprofit showed me how to change the ink on the printer and how to really wear all the hats, because the nonprofit, everybody wore all the hats. So it was almost like running a small business, but I think even more difficult because we had to track everything because our funders required it. Um, so those two experiences led to me having really a crisis of what do I want to do, because the design build world was so intense, and it was like the saying, drinking from a fire hose, that I knew I couldn't sustain it. I also was realizing I had a vision for how I wanted to practice design, and I wanted more control over that. And starting my own practice came out of that crisis. And at the time, my partner, I was actually on the front steps of my home, and I was like really unhappy, and having a moment of like, what's next? What do I do? I don't know what direction I should go in. And she told me, you have all of the skills, all of the heart, all of the passion to try it on your own. You have the personality for it. You have a supportive family behind you. You've got all the skills. Maybe it's time to try it. And we got your back. So I thought, all right, maybe I should do this. Maybe this is the time to do it. I had thought about it years before, but I just didn't really have the confidence yet because I hadn't built many projects. But at that moment, I thought, I think this might be it. And it's like many things in life. We look to folks around us that we love and we trust for guidance. And she's one that I trust deeply. So I thought, you know what? Let's do it. My dad, on the other hand, my mom, oh, they thought I was not crazy, but they were really concerned because they both were lifelong federal employees, and they believed in stability, and they really wanted me to go work for the Park Service or get a job that they knew I could fall back on. And they were worried, but here we are 5 years later.
Sometimes you need that loving, aggressive shove into believing in yourself.
Yes, you totally do. And also the timing too, because I think my mom is the type that will aggressively shove, and it's not always timely. But yeah, in that moment, yeah, Sarah's voice was exactly what I needed to hear, and her perspective. And yeah, that was it. And there's quite a few designers that I've heard that have started their own practices because they're not quite satisfied with their current working situation or conditions, and they just see a better future, and that's what drives them. So that can be a motivator, when you're just looking for better, looking for
Yeah.
change.
Well, I'm glad that you got that push. I think your employees, your collaborators, your clients are all of great benefit to that. So that's wonderful.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I feel the same about them. It's been a beautiful experience.
So now that you have Groundsmith Collective and it's pretty well established now, and obviously it's grown over the years, what does the business structure and the really, I think, a big piece of that, which you've touched on a little bit, is those underlying values that really drive why you have your business structured the way you do. Go ahead and elaborate and kind of talk about how that got started, kind of how it's evolved, and kind of where you are today.
Yeah, sure. So we are an LLC. And when I started out, it was just me doing everything. So me seeking and finding clients, me also supporting other designers, I call them mothers of design, also called the local APLD chapter members that are many of my good friends. So supporting their businesses and doing base plans, that kind of thing. So me doing everything. And from the get-go, I felt like how I practice and who I am was going to be out front, and on the front page of our website. And it is there. We have our values listed on the front page and the homepage. So if anybody wants to know who we are, it's the first thing that they're going to see. And it's all about compassionate practice. It's the human experience, it's balancing nature and the environment. It's always about pursuing new things. It's about designing like it's for mom. We don't hide who we are. We are supporters of the LGBTQ community. We also believe that the landscape architecture community has an issue with diversity. So we are seeking to push forward in all those realms, and those are all values that we hold dear to us. So we put it right on the front page of our website. And I thought, you know what? This is me steering this ship, and I don't know how folks are going to take it, but it's who I am and it's worked so far. And my goodness, has it worked? It has led to an explosion of different clients from different backgrounds, age, religion, gender, identity, everything. We get all kinds of projects and all kinds of folks seeking our services. And I think it's directly related to the content that we put forth to the public. So that's about our values. That's about what we practice. And going from me to where we are now, in the beginning, I was teaching at the University of Maryland to help supplement some of the income of Groundsmith Collective. But I also was interested in trying it out because I loved mentoring when I was a leader and a boss at the nonprofit. And so I ended up teaching AutoCAD at the University of Maryland to a landscape architecture studio. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I did it totally different than how it was taught to me. It was the most incredible experience, I'd say, in the recent years professionally. And I took a break from teaching for a little bit, and I think I missed it. And to satisfy that need to contribute, I decided to start hiring students and to give them opportunities on projects that I was working on. And I'll say that I am very careful about the types of projects that I have students work on. I don't give them high wire act type projects that are very complicated, high risk. I situate them with projects that are more straightforward, and I act as bowling bumpers, and I pull the bowling bumpers up and I let the ball kind of bounce around a little bit, but I'm there guiding them through the whole process. So that that mentorship piece was really important. So I was getting that while I was teaching, and I realized that I needed that to be a part of my practice. And so at that point, it really started shifting from me spearheading all the projects and working on all the projects to just slowly bringing on students on a part-time capacity, even less than, I mean, part-time is, you know, what do they say part-time is? Is it how
It's like
many
under
hours?
30 hours or something.
Yeah, under 30 hours. Yeah, I'd say most of them can really only do 6 to 8 hours a week. So it's like 1 or 2 projects a semester. So I am like very deliberate about which projects they get and making sure that we have the timeline for it. And um, there's a lot of work involved in that for sure. But I'm pretty good at it. And again, like the projects are the right fit for them. So I get them involved with those ones. But the more technical projects, I have Maggie, who has her own design firm, Studio Siembra, and she takes on those projects for me, and so it gives me more time to mentor and be a design auntie, I guess.
I love it. Well, like it's a really great opportunity for students to get that real world experience that depending on the program, like a lot of landscape architecture programs have like little things that they can do, but there's not that much and you don't get that full immersion and meeting with a residential client and having the conversations and working on scheduling. And it's a great way to build that confidence and experience in the I can do this before they graduate.
So true. So true. So I do things in such a different way that I think would make a lot of conventional folks, conventional designers especially, uncomfortable because I I have found this slice in landscape architecture, doing landscape design, landscape architecture work. I found a slice where I'm comfortable taking risks, and I found that we can do beautiful work and make sure our clients are extremely happy and teach at the same time. And it's about finding that right client. So as you know, we do our 15-minute intro calls to make sure that there is a fit and that there's aligned values. And so right off the bat, I can tell if something is going to work out. So making sure that we have those right clients. And I'm not a, so when I said that we're not conventional, I am not afraid to have our designers that are still students send emails to clients. I tell them, you're going to be sending this design product to the client. You're going to be sending this email update to the client, and I will workshop whatever they need to say with them in a Zoom call or via text, however they're comfortable, whatever the situation is, and I'll help them through it. And I know in the beginning it's scary, and I make sure that I'm available for whatever emotion they're feeling. I don't want to be too, I don't want to hold their hands so much where they don't feel comfortable doing anything. That's not it at all. But I will be there if they need me. Because it's funny, I didn't really have that when I was in school. I was lucky to have great mentors in various employment situations, but yeah, there wasn't anybody. I mean, there was my parents, but it was different. Design field is different from anything they've ever experienced. So I just didn't have anybody to go to, and I wanted to make sure I was that person. So yeah, they send emails to clients. They sit in client intro calls. They'll sit in client design reviews. They'll be on site visits if their schedules allow. So they are, like you said, part of everything.
I think that's
Everything.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Now, I was really fortunate. I did have actually a couple mentors that I had that. I mean, I did things that I wouldn't have felt comfortable otherwise, just because I had that safety net knowing that, hey, if I'm feeling unsure about this, I can run this email by them before I send it. Or if I get a slew of questions back that I don't know how to answer, I have that person. And that's a huge benefit. And I think people get further faster having someone by their side that they know they can rely on, so that if they do make a bad mistake, they have someone to help pull them out through it, right?
Oh, yeah, and I point out my mistakes too. I will point out spelling errors that I've caught, or errors on a preliminary design package, and I'll show it to them and say, "Look, I make mistakes too," and you acknowledge it, and you go back and fix it when you have a moment. And it's totally okay. It's totally okay. You do the best you can do, and you try to put in place a few mechanisms to help catch those errors, but when you've been working on something and you got a deadline and you're stressed out, that's a lot of times when I find errors to happen, because you're sick of working on it and you just want to get it finished. And yeah, it's okay. We're human, and life goes on.
Sometimes, especially if you're working on something really hard, you kind of get tunnel vision. You see what you want it to, what you want to see instead of what's actually there. I do that, especially with spelling all the
All the time.
time. So what is, you've already alluded to a little bit, but what is your favorite part of working with students and interns and emerging designers? Like, I feel like, especially new designers that I work with in a capacity similar, not quite the same. It's just, I find so much inspiration and new ideas from them. Do you find the same?
So many interesting ideas, new perspectives. There is like endless possibilities. I see through their eyes a world of possibilities. And there's something that Jason Reynolds, he is a writer, and I've heard him recently on the Design Matters podcast. I even wrote his quote down. It's something along the lines of, young people are the antidote to hopelessness. They believe that the world is a changeable place. That is something that, when I heard it, I actually teared up, because I totally agree. That's why I like to work with elementary school kids, middle school kids, high school kids. I love to support designers as they're moving through their time at university. And I think it's so true. I think that there's just possibility. And there's an energy there that I want to help I want to be a part of that energy. I want to stoke that flame. I think that we tend to, as we get older, stop believing in the possibilities. And I never want to stop believing in the possibilities. I think we start to die when we don't believe in possibilities. So yeah, when I work with the students and mentoring them, I'm almost that drumbeat in the background that keeps them moving, and you know keeps the energy going.
I love that. It really, it is an energy. It's that new, like, the, all the world is possible kind of, that January fresh start, fresh view kind of
Mhm.
energy constantly. They don't even
Constantly,
know what they
yeah.
don't know yet.
No, no, and it's not saying that it isn't hard, because I'm also at the same time trying to help teach really good design principles and design approaches, and the importance of function and the human experience, which they may not get as much in school, because we're working with residential clients. It's their own personal property. So it's so important to place yourself there in that space as if you live there. And yeah, bringing that reality to it is really helpful for them. And I think they need that practicality. But we balance it, because they see things sometimes that, yeah, like you said, that I don't, and it's stunning. It's also really fun just to catch up. I mean, we catch up. Also, one thing that's really interesting about our business model at Groundsmith is that everything's remote. And that's another thing that's maybe not conventional for landscape architecture, but my goodness, is it working and is it cool? I do see a downside that the designers can't see each other and work with each other and collaborate, but I think the ability to have flexibility while they're still in school and not have to commute to an office, and the fossil fuels and the time and all of that, just it just outweighs the negative. And yeah, they're all remote. So we check in via Zoom, and we do have in-person meetings on site and doing design reviews. But I get to catch up and see their faces and be like, hey, how's school going? You know, what's going on? Are any professors giving you grief? And just catch up on that human level. I think that's so important. And I build time into our business model where I can catch up like one-on-one with them, because yeah, I just know how important that is, because I had managers that cared about that. And I've also worked with managers that don't care about that. And it's night and day when it comes to quality of life.
Well, and it's nice to have that flexibility. I mean, I think that I was actually just this morning talking with Colleen that works with me about, she works remotely as well. And it's hard because there's some things that you can't replace by not being in the same physical space. Like even just that by osmosis, like hearing phone calls, hearing, walking by and seeing someone sketch, like you don't get that same exposure, but it gives amazing flexibility. And especially for students in school or young moms with small children, like there's so much value in the flexibility and the ability to work around the rest of your life, because I think the work-life balance thing is shifting dynamic that isn't what it used to be. And that expectation of, 9 to 5 in an office dressed up in heels is not there anymore. At least not in my world.
Not here either. We record all of our internal design reviews with our staff. So not only like check-ins, but we also do internal design reviews. So we record all of the meetings that we feel will be helpful to file away with that particular project. And I find that to be a game changer, because myself, I actually had experience working at a design firm briefly. It wasn't that long of a stint, but it was a high-end residential firm. And there was no patience for folks that made mistakes, or I like to take notes because my memory is terrible. And it was almost as if we were expected to have perfect memory and to be able to read our boss's notes and have no questions or issues. And yeah, it was a very difficult environment to work in. So to be able to record those Zoom check-ins with the students, it's night and day. I mean, they can go back and review it as many times as they want. And so they nail it when it comes to delivering on the tasks that I've asked, because if they missed something, they can go back and check on it, and they can speed it up so they don't have to listen to me talk the whole time, or they could slow it down, or whatever they want. It's in their total control, and it can be dictated, whatever. It's just that piece of it I thought was unbelievable to be able to do that.
That's a really great idea. And that way they can pause it, they can stop, take notes, and because live
Amazing.
you only catch so much. And sometimes I can't even read my own chicken scratch, let alone like
Yes.
remember the full conversation. I'm like, why did I write that down? So that's
See, I'm
that's
a
a great
terrible note
idea.
taker. A terrible note taker. I've never been good at it. I don't know if it's like my ADHD. I just have it's never been a strength of mine. And I found it to be an incredible tool to cover that gap, because a lot of people have the same problem, but also students have so much going on, and they might not know what's important to pick up on or not, you know?
Yeah, true. So true.
Yeah.
I love that idea. I'm gonna start doing that. I'm gonna steal that from you.
Uh,
So in talking about your business, do you have any upcoming goals or things that you have in mind for the future growth and development of Groundsmith Collective?
yeah. I would say I'd like to bring in a diversity of project types and challenges. And I'm not totally sure how I'm going to be doing that. I think I've been really blessed to have work come in organically. So word of mouth is how we get a lot of our clientele. And that's either through local architects that we love the local architects, love my architecture family, because they just, yeah, they're also creative, but they're slightly different, and it's great to have architect friends when you need them. But also contractors that we work with. And so I think it would be nice to get more public projects and do maybe more restoration projects. So just changing up a little bit, shifting some of the project types would be interesting. And I think looking for those RFPs and figuring out how to attract those different project types will be in 2024 and moving forward. I love the types of projects we're doing now, but I think it would be exciting just to always try something new and push the boundaries. One thing that we did last year is we've been working with a local farm on their stormwater management issue. So beautifying it, making it an educational opportunity. And I'd actually love to work with more local urban farms to help them with managing water in an artful and functional way. So yeah, project types, and then really working on our standard documents and getting that to a place that I feel really comfortable with, which is hard as a small business, is having having good standards, being able to rely on them. But as you know, and we talked about the big mentorship piece of Groundsmith, I want students and other professionals that work with us, I want them to leave working with us in a better place that they were before. And wherever they go, I want the places they go to be like, wow, who did you work for? Who did you work with? Because I love how you do that, or that's a really interesting way that you're doing that. So I think I have a greater passion to leave a mark on our profession that is a good one. It's a positive one. So uh, lifting those standards and working on developing groundsmith construction documents for some of the details that we end up figuring out in the field, and actually having time to invest in developing details for us that we just don't always get to build into our budget with our clients. So yeah, working on those standards, putting them out there in the world. Maybe writing a book one day, Chrissy. I don't know. It'd be kind of cool to write a book. I don't know, on how, yeah, kinder, more loving landscape architecture.
I love that idea. I think you should do it.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Your vote of confidence is big in my book. So
I'll push you towards it. I'm
awesome.
doing the same thing. I needed a push, so
Yeah.
you gotta have that.
Yeah, we got to find the time and the money and all those things. But I know there's foundation money out there and there's methods, but yeah, that's going to be on the horizon, I think, in a few years.
Nice. I love it. Be sure to reach out to either of us. Contact information is in the show notes, as well as tag us in social media or anything if you've got some insight or takeaways that you loved from this conversation and from part 2 next week. Be sure to reach out to either of us. Contact information is in the show notes, as well as tag us in social media or anything if you've got some insight or takeaways that you loved from this conversation and from part 2 next week. To wrap up, I want to thank you for your time. I hope the ideas discussed today have left you feeling excited and energized. As I build both my business and my life, I value the support and feedback you provide. I would love for you to reach out to me to let me know what you think, give me ideas, or just to connect. Please don't forget to subscribe and also share with a friend. Until next time, go create something wonderful.